I couldn't just leave it at the open question, what if it sucks? So Iron Fist, I did a video not too long ago basically theorizing what if this thing is as bad as the initial critical reviews are pegging it for. What does that mean? How could that have happened? And what will happen after that? Well, having done that and posed that question, it would be a little reticent of me to not actually watch the thing and answer the question, does it suck? Short answer, no. It's not great though. Not so far, anyways. I'm 3 episodes in, and I'm calling it a night on that. Those first 3 episodes, well, that first episode's not good, guys. The first episode is not good. Second episode's better. Second episode is not great, but it's solidly good. Third one, kind of in the middle. It was a slight step down, but it wasn't as bad as the first one. There's a lot that I didn't like about the first episode. And the whole thing just started really wonky because, right off the bat, for pretty much that entire episode, I'm not rooting for anybody here. I know we're supposed to be rooting for Danny, but I couldn't get a feel for him because he just shows up out of nowhere with no context. We have no idea who he is. I mean, I know who he is. I know who he's supposed to be, the hero and whatnot, but this is his chance to give his first impression of who he is as a character. He just comes across as really naive and a little weird. And maybe as we get more backstory, his being and acting the way he did when he first showed up will make more sense once we have that context. I don't know. And that first episode just had a lot of really lazy writing. I'll give you a couple of examples. There were examples all over the episode, but a couple of key ones that really kind of hammered it home for me. The first was with Ford. You got pretty much right off the bat that this guy was going to be an obstruction. He's more or less running the company, and right off, he's not going to just want to hand that over. That would have been enough. I mean, regardless of whatever history he and Danny did or didn't have, nobody's just going to want to go, oh, you're the guy who vanished 15 years ago. Here's the company I've been running for a while. No one's going to do that. The inherent conflict and, the reasons why he would doubt Danny, it's all right, just baked into the scenario. It all sells itself. But then they had to overreach, and we get this flashback where he's this ridiculous caricature of a dick to a young Danny. It's like the Cobra Kai and Karate Kid. I mean, it's that level of over the top, really cheesy and it's just unnecessary. Another example of really lazy writing, Big Al, the homeless guy in the park. Because, okay, first of all, Danny's in the park, and that's fine in and of itself. Homeless guy comes up to him and is, friendly and makes chat. Okay, yeah, that's fine too. Then homeless guy pulls out an iPhone that he just got a hold of and offers to look up information on anyone for this guy. What a crazy coincidence! It's lazy, contrived writing. And yet, I understand they did a little bit more with him than that, but it's just when he first showed up and it was just this ham-fisted, hey, I'll look up anything you want on this iPhone for you. Really? So that first episode, it was not. Now, look, if I'm being fair, the performances were fine. None of them were great, but they were all doing, I'd say, about the best they could with the material. It was the writing that really sucked in that first episode. Now, we got into the second episode, and the whole mental institution setting was I was far more engaged by Danny's plight in that, because it's a great scenario that makes total sense. He knows who he is, but he can't prove it, and he can't realistically expect people to believe him when he says that. So that scenario, and watching the doctor look into it, seeing his interaction with those few other patients, that was interesting. That was a dynamic I really liked. I'm not going to go so far as to say I wish he had spent more time in the mental institution, because it easily could have gotten overplayed really well. Maybe they could have squeezed another half episode out of it, but for that second episode, I thought it worked really well. It upped the stakes for Danny's situation, because that's the other thing. As of right now, 3 episodes in, I still don't know why Danny's back. I understand more or less where he was for 15 years. I don't understand why he's come back. So in terms of the hindrances and, these people from his past being mean to him and not wanting to give him back the company, it's hard for me to get invested in that, because he said himself he doesn't really want the company. It seems to be, at this point, it's more just spite. But I don't actually know what Danny wants. I don't know why he's there. I don't know what his goal is. I get, he's got the Destiny Stop the Hand and all that, but I don't know how invested he is in that as a character. Is he embracing his destiny? Is he seeking it out? Is he rebelling against it? I have no idea. 3 episodes in. But again, that second episode, I think, just gave me an immediate, for this episode only, situation that it just made the stakes more palpable for me. He's in a place where he doesn't belong because he's not really crazy. He needs to get out. Great. That's much more relatable than all this stuff that because I didn't know where he was coming from or what he was trying for. Now, in that second episode, it was more immediate. He wants to get out of here. Awesome. I can totally get that. Third episode was a little bit more meandering, still better than the first one though. Colleen Wing, I can't really decide what I think of her right now. And again, she's being played fine, but the character's just, I'm not sure I'm prepared to say she's cliche, but she's very predictable. I'll say that about her. There's something that's surprising me, and that's sort of the corporate intrigue, and I'm surprised by that on 2 levels. One, that there's as much of it as there is, and something that ostensibly was kind of sold as, watch this guy use kung fu to kick people's butts. And 2, I'm actually kind of really intrigued by the corporate intrigue. It's actually the thing that's kind of drawing me in the most right now, mostly having to do with Harold Meacham. I find him really interesting. Now, I'm actually not sure if he's a good character or if they're just peeling back the layers and revealing tiny bits of information about him at a really good sort of pace, because he first shows up, it's like, wait, you're supposed to be dead. So immediately I have a bunch of questions, but they're not questions like, I don't get what's going on. They're more questions like, how does this work? It's because I'm immediately wondering, okay, who knows that he's dead? Why did he fake to be dead? Why is it okay for his son to know? How active is he in running everything? Does he ever leave that place? All these questions just sort of bubbled up, and I'm like, I'm interested to see the answers to these. Now, I mean, it could go wrong. An intriguing mystery always can, but as of right now, I am intrigued by his character. Again, I'm not sure that means he's actually a good character. I'll have a better sense of that once we get more answers about what his deal is, and I can see and get a sense of whether or not I still enjoy him when I know his deal, or if my enjoyment of him is completely tied to the mystery aspects of his character. I honestly don't know. Could go either way. I like David Wenham as an actor, but his American accent, not great. I'm actually surprised with Ward and Joy that after painting Ward completely one-dimensionally over the top in that first episode, they're bringing out a surprising amount of depth and nuance and shades of gray to both of them. Joy especially, I think, because it seemed really obvious early on, like, okay, she's the one who's going to sympathize with Danny, and Ward's going to be the jerk, but they kind of go back and forth, and you get the sense that Ward doesn't actually really want to be running this company, but he's sort of a dick by nature, whereas Joy seems to be a nicer person by nature, but she wants to be running this company. And to sort of see that and see what they are striving for versus maybe what they want on a more emotional level, sort of you get a sense of that struggle, and I like that. I find it very, very engaging. I find it very human. So I've been surprised by the depth that they've laid in, and it could have just come across as contradictory. For me, it hasn't. I found it intriguing. And the other thing that I think is worth mentioning, the fight scenes are not great. There are some moments in them, but I remember that very first fight scene in the lobby when Danny's fighting the guards. One of them, comes at him with the baton and he, does a swing. He did it so slow, and it wasn't like slow motion. Like, he just did a slow swing, so it was really obvious that there was plenty of time for the actor to get in there and do the movie he was supposed to do. And I think that's the 2 things going wrong with these fight scenes. One, they're more cut heavy than really a martial arts kung fu-y kind of thing should be, because the real joy of kung fu movies and kung fu fights are long takes, but they really are, they just feel a little bit too slow. Like, they needed to ramp up the footage at like just 15% faster, and it would have felt better, because at the speed these people are moving at, it also makes the hits feel like they don't hurt. Again, not all the time, but enough of the time that it really took me out of the fights, and the fights were what I was kind of looking forward to the most, so that's not great. Again, again, though, as much as I have been complaining more than I've been praising, again, it's not bad. And I think it is getting overhated by critics. And I want to kind of address that just real quickly with a couple of things. If I were to hazard a guess, having not actually read reviews, but only sort of read what the consensus is right now but with the critics, if I were to guess, maybe what the problem is that this show is just, at least as far as I've gotten into it, it's just kind of unremarkable. It's not bad, but Marvel is just capable of so much more, and it's just kind of there. It's very by the numbers. It's very rote. It doesn't seem to have a particularly strong identity. I mean, one thing that you can say, whether you love them or not, is that all three of the previous Netflix shows, Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, certainly, all had really clear, really strong identities. I don't get that so much from this show. It just doesn't stand out. It's actually to the point when I was talking about the characters, I will have cut it, but I had to get my phone out and bring up IMDb to get character names. I had actually considered, doing this review in the morning as opposed to late at night after watching these 3 episodes, and I realized I couldn't because I will probably have forgotten a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about. And sort of that's the thing. It doesn't leave a huge lasting impact. And I think that's its sort of detriment, again, as far as I've gotten. Now, the things that are good enough that I'm not bailing. I'm gonna keep watching, and I'm gonna see if it can keep improving and building on the bits that work. Oh, and I want to call one other thing. I have a really bad feeling that because the show is not as bad as the initial critical response would have led us to believe, I have a fear and a feeling that a lot of fans are going to over-defend this and overpraise it, because in their heads they need to offset the critics, because the critics went, it's no good, so fans are going to end up going, no, they're wrong, it is good, it's great, when in reality it's just okay. So critics who are saying it's and again, I haven't read a ton of the reviews, but if critics were saying this is a bad show, they're wrong. It's a fine show. It's not an especially good one, though. Again, not as far as I've gotten into it. So picking up some of the stuff I said in my video, what if this sucks? What will that mean for fan reaction? I feel like I'm already seeing to a certain extent that fans are overshooting their praise, trying to compensate for the critical lambasting it got, and I wonder if we're going to end up with Marvel's first, BVS scenario, where the majority of people didn't love it, were either they didn't care for it or they were neutral on it, but the people who did like it are going to defend it as if it's something better than it actually is. I don't know, we'll see. And like I said, I do plan to stick with the show. I don't know if I'll follow up with more reviews. It's just going to depend on whether or not my overall assessment at this point of it being basically fine but kind of forgettable changes at all. If it changes significantly, if this thing goes completely to hell, or if it becomes great, I'll probably come back and do another video. If not, I might leave it at this. We'll see. But how far have you gotten into Iron Fist so far? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, check me out on Twitter at Council of Geeks. Give a listen to the Council of Geeks podcast, available on iTunes and Stitcher. And until next time, this council is adjourned.